Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. You just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
So we give you the bonus episode usually Wednesday or Thursday on Purple Daily. Usually it takes the form of Judd's practice notes. But because the Vikings made a gigantic trade, or at least a trade for a gigantic man, maybe a gigantic trade for a gigantic man yesterday, Judd will be out at practice and the Kevin O'Connell press conference, etc., and we can sprinkle some of that stuff into Thursday. But Cam Robinson, new Vikings left tackle, and the Colts also announced a major shakeup that affects everything for this game on Sunday. So let's dive into some of this stuff after we talk about ugly deck. It's fall deck season here, gentlemen. It was like 70 degrees last night, too.
Record in some cities.
80 degrees, I think. It's craziness, but yes, fall is the perfect time to be on your deck, perhaps with a television, watching football, a beer in hand. And Ugly Deck is here to help you because their mission is to rid the world of all those ugly decks. Book a free deck estimate this month and get 3 free footings included. Just need a deck tweak, get up to $1,000 off installation or a DIY deck package. For the DIYer, Ugly Deck can install your footings in Ledger and save you from the mess and frustration on the hardest and worst part of building a deck. If you want the top carpenters and maintenance-free decks to build your entire deck, they build year-round. So book a free estimate today for a new deck this year. Just check them out, uglydeck.com, uglydeck.com, and you know what? You'll be sitting on a beautiful new deck, and Ugly Deck's mission will have progressed because another ugly deck will have been eliminated.
Hey, a lot of you have also been asking, when are you going to do another watch party? When are you going to do a live Vikings vent line? And we have an answer for you. Not this weekend, but next Sunday, November 10th, Minnesota, Jacksonville, Park Tavern in St. Louis Park, the official sports bar of the Sports Dad. We're going to gather 11 o'clock a.m.-ish is when, I guess, the doors open technically for this event. Game starts at noon, and then a live Vikings vent line on YouTube, but for the live audience too, right after that game is over. So come hang out with us, Park Tavern in St. Louis Park, Sunday, November 10th, for a watch party against Jacksonville and a live. And by the way, we ask too that everyone, if you're able to, brings a non-perishable food item or multiple non-perishable food items to benefit STEP, Steps Food Shelf in St. Louis Park. So we want to do some good for people who need it. So we're looking forward to it. Our first live watch party and vent line of the season, gentlemen. Yes. Right in the Sports Dad's home.
Yeah, I'm
going to
have
game
to,
for you.
Let's see if I'm going to get there by 11. I can't leave past 10:57.
Okay,
from my house. So I'll have to get in my car 10:57 and get there. But by then, yeah, it's going to be fun. And here's the great thing: a year ago when we did this event at Park Tav, if you guys recall, they were playing Carolina and had gotten off to a bad start.
Yeah.
Hopefully, knock on wood, this will be the continuation of a very successful year. So,
yeah, so we're looking forward to it.
I like it.
Okay, so yesterday the Vikings made a big trade. They traded for Cam Robinson, starting tackle for the last 8 years for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the terms of the deal are the Vikings get Cam Robinson, who has an expiring contract, becomes a free agent in March. The Vikings also get a conditional 2026 7th-round pick. Now, based on playing time, that 7th-rounder could go away, according to Kevin Seifert, ESPN.com. The Jaguars get a conditional 2026 5th-round pick that could become a 4th-round pick based on playing time. So, again, we don't know unless the details have come out this morning here, and I just missed them. We don't know the exact snap counts or games, or is it if you go this far in the playoffs?
That's what I was going to say. Playoffs,
probably
perhaps.
Right. Playoff snaps or something. So if the longer they go and the more he plays, it could be a 2026 4th-round pick. It could also just be a 7th and a 6th swap and whatever. But yeah, 29 years old. Like I said, former 2nd-round pick out of Alabama in 2017. He's been an 8-year good, not great starting left tackle for the Jaguars. Expiring contract. Now, the Jaguars technically benched him last week in favor of 4th-year backup Walker Little when they played the Packers, but Cam Robinson was coming off a concussion. He cleared concussion protocol. My guess is they were involved in trade discussions for him and decided it wasn't worth the risk of playing him. I don't know that it was like, he's garbage,
right?
Because he's actually he's rock solid in pass protection, according to Pro Football Focus and some of the film. So what do you guys think? Your thoughts on the Vikings trading for presumably a new starting left tackle, at least for this season?
I love this. I absolutely, I love not just the pickup, but the message it sends. And since it is a write that down Wednesday, when we admit that we were wrong, I take you back to yesterday when I said, I don't think they're going to pick up a player at this spot. I don't think that they're going to make a trade. Now the deadline, of course, is Tuesday. And I do think that there, was a chance and there remains a chance that they try to add a defensive tackle or a cornerback. But I said here, I think they're probably going to move Blake Brandel or Quessenberry is going to play. And immediately I was proven wrong. So I was wrong, but I love being wrong here. And I think the most important thing is this. So a year ago, when the Vikings lost Cousins and they went out and got Dobbs, and getting Dobbs was not the problem. Not trading Daniil was. That team had gotten off to a bad start, had fought back to 4-4, but I think we all said, yeah, you lost your quarterback now, really? Get something for Daniil at that time. Fast forward to right now. You're 5-2, and here's where I think the message to the room with this trade is huge. You're not only 5-2, but since the first day of training camp, your head coach has gotten up in front of the entire roster and said, what? We're way better than anyone thinks. Believe in yourself. If you do, we're going to be successful, right? And the players, despite the past 2 defeats, rewarded Kevin O'Connell with 5 wins. And I mean, this team has proven that Kevin was right. So in this case, I think the messaging, a year ago, the players were like, don't trade guys. And I would have said, guys, we're 4-4. Cousins is out. I'm sorry. In this case, I think you send the message, and Kwesi did, and the entire front office did, which is, we believe in you. And taking Blake Brandel, who has been a pretty good left guard, and saying, play left tackle where we know that you're not as good, or Quessenberry, who is a career backup now. That's a message of, okay, I'm okay. I think that this is great. I also like, in this case, because the trade terms aren't bad, Robinson is in the last year of his contract, so he might stay, but Darrisaw is coming back, so he might walk. That's fine. Short term, I think this sends a fantastic message to the players, to the coaching staff, and to the fan base. We are going to get you a starting quality left tackle who might not be as good as Christian. Few are. Might not be as great in run blocking, but can get Sam Darnold time to throw because he holds the ball a long time. I like it.
Yeah, I think it was necessary. Instead of shifting, I wouldn't say chairs on the Titanic. That's a little bit probably too aggressive, but I think something we sometimes take for granted in football, especially with trades and plugging in players in. When with the baseball team, you need a cleanup hitter. You go plug in a cleanup hitter, and it makes your lineup better. With football, you have to learn so many more nuanced things of so many different playbooks and cadences and things like that. So I think asking Brandel to move over to a new position and sliding in Dalton Reisner, even though there's a case to be made he should be playing, you're moving too many chairs around. That's unnecessary. So instead, how about you just trade for a guy that's a solid left tackle that's better than anyone internally in your room? It costs you at worst, a 4th-round pick in 2 drafts from now. So, in my opinion, I think this is a phenomenal trade. If this was the price of poker for it, I think we all would have suggested something like this, and maybe we should earmark this type of trade going forward. But I think this is the right move for the Vikings to make. It makes your offensive line better, and it really doesn't hurt your capital going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could come in here as the third guy and spar with you two and say this is a terrible trade. I think it would make for an interesting argument, but we don't do that on this show. I agree with you guys. This is a great trade. It's a very low risk, low cost trade, and the cost is pushed 2 drafts out to 2026. So I think there's 3 main reasons why I'm all about this trade. Number 1, you preserve your sparse 2025 draft capital, the 1st-round pick, and then the 2 5th-round picks. Ideally, you maybe get another like a third round comp pick from last year's free agency class discrepancy. But if you're trading from the 2025 class, which are you could be adding players that align with J.J. McCarthy's timeline and the window to win here. If you're taking 2 drafts from now, maybe a 4th or a 5th round pick, and you might even be getting like a 7th round pick back as a swap. Okay, whatever. Like that's not much to be giving up. So number one, you don't give up that much. Number two, you're past the point, like Judd said, of leaning into football natural causes.
Right.
We've banned the word tanking on the show. And last year they had a chance to lean into football natural causes, and it wound up happening that they actually lost a bunch of games at the end of the year, and they finished with like 7 wins. They are way beyond that point. I mean, even with a couple losses and Christian Darrisaw out, they are still one of the favorites in the NFC. Yeah. And you're trying to build something here. This isn't like Madden or fantasy or whatever, where you just dump players and then play for next year. I mean, you need to ingrain winning and building and going through the grind and the battles so that when it's your time, when things come together, and if it's not this year, maybe it's 2025, you're used to it. Like the Lions wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for 2 or 3 years ago, a bad start, and then they grind through it, and they learn how to win in the second half of the year, and they beat the Packers to get their 9th win of the season, and then they build on that going into 2023, right? Like this whole, like, these are worthless, meaningless wins. They didn't make the playoffs. Go tell Dan, 2 years ago, go tell Dan Campbell and Jared Goff and everything they were building and Ben Johnson that those were worthless, meaningless wins because they missed the playoffs. Well, they didn't get as high of a draft pick, right? But they learned how to win and fight through something. And I think it's more valuable for the Vikings with this nucleus to learn how to win and work through something than to just be like, oh, your left tackle's out. You should be leaning into losing games to get a better first-round pick.
And they deserve this. Like the locker room deserves this. Like that's the case. When you get off to a bad start and then your starting quarterback goes down, you're probably dead, right? And I think what I also like here is seemingly the recognition that in some ways the window that we probably thought was not going to open until 2025 has opened at least a crack now. And there are some years where it's like, yeah, you know what? Just if you could trade a guy, trade him. And I've certainly expounded and talked about that. But there are some years where I think that you need to say the players have given us what they have. They deserve this. On a much bigger scale, when Teddy's leg snapped, right? And it's like, okay, Sean Hill now. Now that team was pretty good. That's the 16 team coming off a playoff berth. Mm-hmm. There was no way that you could parade in front of that team, Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman, and say, okay, guys, next man up is Sean Hill. So yes, you gave up in that case a first round pick to get Bradford. But I will always agree with that because that team deserved that. This team deserves this. And you have set, for O'Connell's sake, he has set a tone of we need to believe together. So you can't lose just an integral piece, not a quarterback, but a huge piece, and say, you know what I told you before? We believe in Blake Brandel. And I think the timing of this move, I mean, we don't know. This guy might work out great. He's been hurt before. He's had knee problems. So I am certainly not saying that
he's not Darrisaw.
Yeah, exactly. Christian Darrisaw's replacement is here, but it's a big upgrade on what you were going to try to do internally.
Yep. And I'll give you one more too, just reasons why it sounds like we all love this trade. These are the NFC playoff teams right now. If the playoffs started today, the NFC is wide ass open this year. And you should not take that lightly because every year things happen, teams get the right coach, the right quarterback, and now they're building something, right? But here are the playoff teams in the NFC right now. The Lions are the 1 seed, and they are very much clearly the best team in the NFC.
Absolutely.
But you just went toe-to-toe with them a couple weeks ago. You don't look at the Lions are better, but you don't look at the Lions and say, well, that's insurmountable. There's zero chance we could ever compete and beat that team. You say, you know what, if you roll the football out 10 times, at Detroit, we probably win 3 or 4 of those games.
Right.
Especially having played enough against them the last couple of years. But after Detroit, who you might not even see anyways until, NFC Championship game, the Washington Commanders are the 2 seed. And that's been a great story. And Jaden Daniels has clearly become one of the star quarterbacks in the league. But they have one of the weakest schedules in the NFL. I don't think they're ready. Like, they're 6-2, but if you gave them some other team schedules, their strength of victory is a 340 winning percentage. The Vikings' strength of victory is a 500 winning percentage. So, like, Washington's feisty, but you don't look at, again, if you matched up with these teams in the playoffs, how scared are you of Washington? I don't know. Vikings might be favorites in that game. Atlanta, if the playoffs start today, the Vikings will actually play at Atlanta. And they've racked up some points, and they got some weapons, and Kirk is a professional quarterback. But Vikings fans, are you sitting out there as you consume Purple Daily? Are you, like, losing sleep over the idea of playing the Falcons, the Cardinals, the Packers, who you just took a 4-touchdown lead on in their building like a month ago, and the Eagles are the other NFC playoff teams right now? The Eagles, I think, are still closer to firing Nick Sirianni than they are to going to a Super Bowl. The 49ers, be on the lookout. But, like, the Cowboys are a train wreck. The Rams are formidable, but out of the playoff picture right now. So, like, it's open, man. It is open, and unfortunately the Lions are in your division, so you're going to have to go through a road path likely to make it happen. But you can't discount the fact that the NFC is in the state that it's in.
And you've got enough guys now who I think as you shift into 25, like, the experience here is really, really good. So, like, it's not like now it's weird because you do have a lot of veterans on 1-year contracts, and this is not a young roster, but you have enough young players. And look, you know what? Like, I think there's 2 ways to define the term culture. Patrick, I apologize because Royce said, I heard you talking about culture again. But
I don't think he consumes Purple Daily. I don't think he does. He consume
I'm
Purple
surprised
Daily?
by sometimes he consumes stuff I don't expect him to consume. And
I don't think you have
weird.
to apologize.
But anyway, so I think there's the culture of your franchise, right? Like Heat culture, like the culture that you build up. But I also think that there's a locker room culture that can change and morph. And I feel like your culture right now, if you go to the playoffs and you win or lose, there's no downside. There's no like, well, you shouldn't have made the playoffs. Like, there are teams where it's like, you are a complete fluke. And a lot of guys are gone.
The Giants.
And this is a waste of your time. You would have been better off with a higher pick. I do believe that. But not this team. Not this team. And I think that there's enough core pieces who are going to be here where as much success as they can get in 2024, I think it's great because I think it only is going to or should springboard you into the JJ McCarthy 2025 era where you would hope the window goes wide open.
Yeah. A couple other things on Cam Robinson before we shift our discussion to the upcoming immediate game on Sunday night. So according to Pro Football Focus, generally over his 8 years and over the last 3 years, more recent, they really like him as a rock solid pass protector, but his run blocking is not nearly what Christian Darrisaw is. He's been prone to some major lapses too. Like this year, the last 3 games he's played in, he's been like clean sheet, lights out, maybe like 1 pressure in 3 games. But then I think it was weeks like 3 and 4 against Buffalo and Cleveland, a combined 4 sacks allowed, 12 pressures. So there's some games like against Houston, and he is neutralizing Will Anderson Jr. for 3 hours. But then there's other games against Buffalo where he's just getting put through the spin cycle. But overall, rock solid, well above average pass protector who is not as good out in space as a run blocker as Christian Darrisaw. So I'm sure we'll get to see him. I don't know. Do we think he's playing against the Colts? They're just going to like throw him right in there in the first game.
Question that I think we're going to have to broach with KO today because I don't know. Like he's ready to play, and I would think that the transition, like if you get the cadences down, right? Like it's not like the playbook that a quarterback gets where it's like, and hell, Dobbs played immediately because he had to. If I was to bet right now, I'm betting he does play.
especially as a left tackle, that's the one position along the offensive line that it's more often cut and dry what you're doing. Like there's some plays where you might have to like pull or something, but usually it's the guards and the centers that they might have. Left tackle, it's usually, all right, it's you against the premier edge rusher over here on an island. Go get him.
My question is this. Would you prefer that he play on Sunday night against the Colts or Quessenberry does? Because they're not going to move Brandel now, nor should they. So your options are backup Quessenberry, who is fine in that role, or a guy that is used to starting, might not be as familiar with things, but is a better player. I'd rather go
great
with
question, man.
Robinson.
I probably just throw Robinson in there.
Yeah.
He's the more talented guy, and just go figure it out. The other thing that I was trying to figure out and asking smarter people than me, and I got mixed answers back, is when you trade for a player, is that player eligible for the comp pick formula? If Cam Robinson, then let's say he plays lights out the next 2 months, and he goes and signs a big 3-year contract because he's only 29. Like he still could sign a big 3-year contract for $60 million somewhere. Mm-hmm. Would that factor into the comp pick formula benefiting the Vikings? But even if it does, the Vikings with $70+ million in cap space are much more likely to bring in more key free agents than they would lose.
Yes.
But but if Sam Darnold goes and signs a big contract somewhere, it could get interesting with the comp pick formula. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys have an answer on that, but we could. I'm sure the YouTube commenters have their sleuthing radars up to let us know.
The weird thing is, to this day, there's a guy that thinks he's got it figured out, but nobody knows the formula. So like we don't even know. Twitter? Yeah, there's a guy on Twitter who is pretty good at projecting comp picks, but like the formula, how the stew is made is unknown.
It's just like there's just like a guy in the NFL league office. It's like, let's give the Niners a 4th round pick.
Hold on a second.
Well, the Jaguars, let's give them a 5th.
Blowing? Kirk's worth a 6th round. Are you kidding? Have you seen Cousins in the playoffs?
So that could factor in as part of the value. But then again, like if you're the Jaguars and you're dealing in 2026 picks anyways, if you thought he was going to be a big factor, wouldn't you just hang on to him and collect?
Well,
I don't know.
He's been franchised twice, and a third tag is enormous. He did sign, I think, a 3-year deal, of which he is in the last season right now.
But so you wouldn't tag him. Like, you would let him walk, and he would
sign
somewhere else.
But I'm saying I think the Jags were just done with it, like, as far as the expense goes. I think he's good. I just think that he is, in this case, the price makes him an ideal rental.
Yeah, the price here, the fact that it's not 2025 picks is I mean, that tilts the scales for me. Okay, let's get into the Colts announcement yesterday here, which could be a big factor, especially people sort of dismissing the Colts in this game on Sunday. But I mean, maybe you're perusing through underdog decks looking for Joe Flacco numbers. I don't know.
Yeah, they'll probably update those very shortly on Underdog. They'll have like a bunch of different stuff like touchdown passes or longest completion, etc. Plenty of great stuff at Underdog. You can also still get in with 50% deposit bonus. They'll still match it with promo code SCORE for those new users. For those current users, appreciate everyone who has. I believe Nico sent me this one from last week against the Rams. 3 pick'ems, road hires on Justin Jefferson, Josh Oliver, Cooper Kupp. All those hit, and he gets a nice little $150 payout from the pick'ems on Underdog. Promo code SCORE for a 50% deposit match. Shout out to Underdog.
Judd, how's the tune-up going? The Livia tune-up. Where are we at?
We are down 15 pounds, and it's going great. And I'm going to tell you right now, Livia Weight Control Centers. Thank you very much. But don't applaud me. Applaud my friends, because again, it's a standing ovation. They've got a program that works. I'm going to tell you, it's as easy as possible. It's not a bunch of food. Yes, you get some food, but it's not like microwave meals. It's not the hassle of, I can't go out tonight because it's 6 o'clock. I've got to cook this up. Livia allows you to live your life like you want and drop weight. It's fantastic. I'm going to tell you too, the support is great as well. No judgment. You don't get you're up 2 pounds. What happened? What'd you eat? What you get is you get support, you get a plan. They talk you through your week, and it is fantastic. If you want to find out what Sports Dad has, which is Livea Works, 855 go LIVEA, Livea.com, LIVEA.com. And don't forget, if you're not in the metro here, that's fine. Entire program can be done virtually. It's that simple. Livea, LIVEA.com.
And hey, Federated has been around for over 100 years, helping to support Score North and Purple Daily the last handful of years. But they have so much experience helping businesses like a great offensive line where they stay focused on safety, preventing claims, and risk management, and you stay focused on growing your business. You can find a full list of resources and industries Federated specializes in at federatedinsurance.com, whether you're a Minnesota-based business or anywhere around the country. They want to hear from you and talk about how they can help your business. Federatedinsurance.com to find out more. Okay. So Anthony Richardson benched another young quarterback. There's like two separate conversations here. There's the why are teams throwing these young quarterbacks into the fire, and then after like 15 or 20 games, like, well, he can't play. Now, tapping out because you're winded is another layer to the young quarterback story here.
Yeah.
But like Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson, people are pointing out, remember what we thought of Josh Allen after the first 2 years? He's not accurate. He can't read a defense. He can't play. And you stick with him and you give the guy some time. So there's that angle, and we can explore that. But then there's the how does Joe Flacco starting over Anthony Richardson on Sunday Night Football impact the game? Here's a guy. I'm going to give you the craziest stat that you've heard all year in the NFL for quarterbacks. Like, this is... My mind was blown when I saw this on PFF.
Okay.
So people wondering, man, did the Brian Flores defense get solved? You know, the Lions and the Rams and just the chunks of passing yards. The Vikings defense has the number one blitz rate in the NFL. It's down from last year. It was like 55% last year. It's 41% this year, but still by far the highest blitzing team in the league, Brian Flores. Jared Goff, completion percentage against the blitz, number one in the league, 78%. Just a surgeon against the blitz. 11 yards per attempt. He's awesome against the blitz. Matthew Stafford, 68% completions against the blitz. 8 yards per attempt. Surgical against the blitz, right? Anthony Richardson against the blitz. 29% completions.
He's a
29%.
He's a 44% completion guy across the board.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not surprised.
He's bad, period, as a passer.
Yeah.
But like, this is part of the reason why the Colts made this decision. They're like, oh my God, he's struggling. He's out of shape. He's out of breath. What's the worst possible thing that could happen? He faces the most blitz heavy, and I would argue, like in terms of being able to spy on Anthony Richardson, like Josh Metellus, Ivan Pace. They've got speedy linebackers just to track him down if he runs. But dude, so the next worst quarterback completion percentage against the blitz is 47%. So Richardson is 29% completions.
Wow.
The next worst is 47%, Jacoby Brissett. And you swap that out for Joe Flacco, who, by the way, like, you can fluster him with a blitz too. I mean, he's old, and let's not forget, he had some nice games in Cleveland, but you know, he's not Stafford or Goff. But this gives the Colts a much better chance to handle the blitz, making this swap on Sunday night. And I think Declan said the line moved like 2 points.
Yeah, it did.
With this announcement too.
Yep.
So, yeah, this is kind of bad luck for the Vikings that Anthony Richardson is being benched for this game.
Yeah, and plus, if you just, add in the noise, like good young quarterbacks have melted against the Vikings at the bank. So, I think this is... Now, here's my question, though. I think for this game, this move is probably the right move, but the way the Colts went about announcing it, it certainly didn't... Like if they're benching him now just for in perpetuity... I think they're crazy. Like you have to find, he's the 4th overall pick, but for this game, it makes sense. It's bad news for the Vikings in some ways, But I mean, I still don't think if Joe Flacco carves you up, you got problems, and I don't think that should be the case. So I would rather have Richardson start against the Vikings on Sunday. But that being said, I also have confidence that the defense is going to have ironed out some of its issues. And to your point, Phil, Joe Flacco is going on 40. He's not exactly the most mobile guy left. So I'm still pretty confident. The only issue from the Vikings perspective, as Duke talked about on the Tuesday scoop, was it's looking more and more like we're not certain if Blake Cashman is going to return. And for all we've joked about it, I mean, clearly he's an important part here. Mm-hmm. So it's a setback if he does not come back. But that being said, I still think the Vikings defensively need to and will come back with a strong game. But yeah, Flacco at least will know what he's looking at. It feels like Anthony Richardson does not.
Flacco obviously gives them a better chance to win than Anthony Richardson. But, and maybe this is just me, either these are famous last words or I'm just trying to calm down the boogeyman. There is like this fear that Joe Flacco is Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady combined coming off the bench, and this is absolutely such a huge buzzkill for the Vikings. And yes, the line swings, and Flacco gives them a better chance to win, but the Vikings still have a better head coach. They have a better offensive weapons. They've been the better team this season. I feel like maybe it's because of the back-to-back losses, too, that are compounding this. There is like this aura that Joe Flacco is the greatest quarterback of all time coming off a bench. And no doubt is he a capable backup, and he did it last year with the Browns. But I'm not like sweating this game now going into it because Joe Flacco is going to carve them up. I mean, maybe this will completely slap me in the face in 5 days. But I think it's important to put that out there too.
I mean, I'm not trying to be a fearmonger here, but you did bring up Patrick Mahomes. And the last 2 seasons, Joe Flacco has a 94.5 passer rating. Patrick Mahomes, 4 points worse at 90.5. Just going to put that out there. Joe Flacco has a better passer rating than Patrick Mahomes the last 2 seasons. Do with that what you want.
What does that mean?
Yeah, but why is that?
Why?
Isn't his QBR? But his QBR last year, even though his pass rating was good, his QBR was under
listen,
50.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback, but something happened with Joe Flacco sitting on his couch before Cleveland called him.
Probably got healthy.
He's refreshed. He's healthy. Yeah. And, you start, by the way, the Colts, this is the other thing about the Colts. They have, by most measurements, the best offensive line in the NFL. So it makes it a lot easier. It's another part of the indictment for Anthony Richardson. It's like, dude, you have the best offensive line in the league, and you still can't figure it out. Joe Flacco is sitting behind the best offensive line in the league. They've got a couple different weapons here and there. So, and then I'll say this I'll take KOC over Shane Steichen. But Shane Steichen is one of the bright young coaches in this league, too. The Colts are 13-12 under Shane Steichen the last 2 years, with Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew, and Joe Flacco at quarterback. And I think Jonathan Taylor was out for like a huge chunk of last season, too. Mm-hmm. They're 4-4 this year, but those 4 losses have come by a combined 14 points. So every game has been a win or down to the wire for the Colts so far this year. The last time they were beat decisively was like the 3rd game before the end of last season. So I agree. Vikings are better. Vikings are playing at home, but there are some things that make this game. I've just heard from a lot of people like, well, there's no excuses. The Vikings should this, that, the other. The Colts are better than most Vikings fans are giving them credit for, and they just swapped in a better quarterback. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Just trying to bring some reality to the show here.
And the Vikings need to have, I mean, they got 10 days off. So they need to come back with a plan where if Flacco begins to try to exploit the same things that Detroit and the Rams did, they're prepared. So, like, there are things, like, I think this game is more important in what the Vikings do than what's done to the Vikings, if that makes sense. Like, this is about adjustments. It's about 10 days off. I am looking for a very strong bounce, win or lose. I am looking for a very strong bounce back, because I mean, this is a character test, and you know what? I think that the trade for Robinson goes hand in hand, right? Like, you are telling the players, we think you are good enough. Like, we think that you can make a playoff run. So let's see that. But yeah, I'm not sweating the opponent so much as I am just really curious to see what the bounce back is.
If they bounce back, excuse me, if they bounce back strongly, like a 10-point win or something, that is so much more impressive against this team than I think the masses would give it credit for. Because this is it's a great sign if the Vikings come back on Sunday Night Football and win this game 30-20.
Yes.
Don't dismiss that as like, oh, that's what they should have done. No, this is an actual football team with a really good offensive line, and they can run the football, and they have a professional quarterback that knows what he's looking at. So that's all I will say.
Mm-hmm. I will say that though that the amount to go back to the beginning of the segment, the amount of quarterbacks, young QBs who are being done dirty is incredible.
Yeah.
And I refer you to a Kevin O'Connell quote again from this year, which is spot on and will remain spot on. I just think he said, as a whole, there's not enough emphasis put on the organization's role in the development of the position, meaning I believe that organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations. Mm-hmm. That is 100% right. And that is why I have so much faith that J.J. McCarthy's in great hands. But, you know, these failures, we act like the quarterback was supposed to step in because he was drafted high and just get it, right? These failures, and I do think, you know, for all of the good that you just said about Shane Steichen, I think his downfall might be this one. 4th overall pick, and you're just going to say, it didn't work. Like, you don't draft a quarterback to say, you don't draft a quarterback top 10 to say, I guess she didn't work out too well, huh? Let's just move on. So, but I mean, Kevin O'Connell, that's one of the best quotes I've ever seen from a coach.
A lot of people, though, at Florida looked at Anthony Richardson and said, I don't know that he's accurate enough to even be, like, he's supremely athletic and his measurables are off the charts. But if you can't complete 58, 60% of your passes in college, can you really translate to the NFL? And those sort of worst nightmares are playing out here. And which begs the question, does a coach deserve to be fired if he whiffs on the development of the first quarterback that they draft, which is another epidemic in the NFL?
Yep.
Brian Daboll, you couldn't make it work with Daniel Jones. You're fired. Shane Steichen, I know you're above 500 with a hodgepodge of quarterbacks, but you couldn't make it work with Anthony Richardson. You're fired. Like, we do that a lot in the NFL.
I think the blame resides with the coach lots of times, but the entire franchise. Like, who drafted him? Like, if you just said, you know what, Richardson, he's not accurate, but you tell the owner of the team, I think we can fix him, you better damn sure make sure that you can fix him.
I would look at the Colts situation, and it's like front office decided that, and Shane Steichen, that, all right, Anthony Richardson's the guy, whatever. But as a player, you have the best offensive line in the league. You have Jonathan. You have a running game. Okay, maybe you don't have Justin Jefferson out there, and granted, that's probably the next step for the Colts is to get like somebody better than Josh Downs. So that's fair.
You're right.
But you can't even complete 50% of your passes. So there's some of it's like, dude, you have to, and you're out of breath and tapping out of games. So I think Richardson's almost a different case in that, dude, you have to be better than this. You're an NFL quarterback, but also, should you really be benching him halfway through his second season? Like, why did they overdraft him?
That's what I was going to say. If the masses are saying he can't throw and you're like, oh, we'll fix him, you better make sure you can fix him. And on Jones, that's one where I will say, if I own the Giants, whoever came to me and said, you got to see Jones against the Vikings, this defense, he's picking it apart. And I'm like, Ed Donatell's terrible. And they're like, no, we got to sign him. That's damn near, whoever said that, a fireable offense too. Like, you are telling me, like, Daniel Jones has a track record. He picks apart a defense that's run by a horrific coordinator, and now you're going to sign him? So, like, I think that there's a ton of fault here, but I do think the epidemic of young QBs just expected to, at some point, step in and magically have fixed all of their wrongs, it's a real problem. It's a lot of incompetence, I think, that is organizational and sometimes the kid.
And so because of all those reasons, it's Joe Flacco on Sunday night. Here's a guy.
First round pick from Delaware, 2008. Joe Flacco. I think the Vikings did like him.
Back in 08?
Back in 08. I think they kicked the tires.
The lead Vikings beat writer from the Star Tribune was sniffing around. So did you hear that they were
at the time? I had heard that they like. I mean, they like a lot of guys. Here's a guy. Here's another guy. But yeah, I think they did like him. But it's not exactly a QB factory. Rich Gannon,
they had
right?
Tavares Jackson was already the incumbent starter, so there's no way that you would have.
Well, Chili had signed off on that one.
Yep, man. We should get Chili on Purple Daily to hash things out with Judd someday. If you guys reconcile things.
We haven't spoken in years. He talks to Chip sometimes. He talks to Mark Craig.
But he lives in the Twin Cities, doesn't he?
They still have the house. I'm not going to say where. I'm not going to say where.
What school district does his
I'm not going to say. I'm
go
not going to say anything. His daughter works here in. Not going to say where. Not going to say it. Don't even ask. But yeah, I think he still has a house here. I don't know that he probably has a couple of houses. I'm guessing he's got one like in Florida as well or something. But
yeah.
And what town? Not going to say that in Florida either. Like, is it Vero Beach? Is it Palm? Like Palm Beach? I'm not going to tell you.
To figure it out on your own, I guess. A lot of inside jokes right there that went over people's heads, but that's fine. Okay, this is Purple Daily.
Pithy. It was pithy what I did.
Daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.